We depart Brassport and continue exploring Steampunk Island. We find port in Cogoggle Marina. Here, we run into Rib Bon Beaufort, who shares their concern for potential misconfigurations in their Active Directory environment. Rib mentions vulnerable deployments have moved too quickly into production, and they are concerned as Wombly Cube's research-sensitive files are stored there. Rib concludes mentioning this challenge is to be continued using the Alabaster's SSH access obtained during the SSH Shenanigans challenge. We also find additional hints in our badge. The first hint mentions Alabaster's profile has useful tools for this challenge. The second references potential Active Directory misconfigurations related to certificate services. As suggested by Rib, we go back to our terminal and connect back to the SSH server using Alabaster's credentials. Next, we request a token to leverage the VM's managed identity and store it in the access_token variable. We are now ready to continue querying the Azure environment using the REST API. In the previous SSH challenge, we discovered the subscription ID associated with this deployment. To start, we will query that subscription to identify any resources available there. To find the endpoint for this query, we review the Azure reference docs. Our query reveals two key vaults. We focus on the North Pole IT vault. To learn more about this vault, we query the Azure API for its details. Once again, the Azure docs help us find the URL to query and get these details. Within the output of this query, we find the vault's URI. This will be helpful when trying to review the contents of this vault. To continue in our path, we craft a query to fetch the secrets stored inside of this vault. As we attempt our query, we received an error message indicating the incorrect audience was requested. This issue occurs as our original token was requested for the Azure Management Endpoint. To correct this, we request a new token to be issued to the vault audience. Having the appropriate token ready, we try our query again, and this time it succeeds. The output indicates the vault contains a script and it displays the vault's ID. With this ID on hand, we can request the contents of the script. The query for the contents of the script succeed. As the name suggests, the script is used to provision a new user to Active Directory. For that purpose, it contains clear text password and domain information we can leverage to move around the network. Following the hint of tools being available in Alabaster's profile, we review their home directory and find the Impacket tools available. Impacket provides a series of Python classes to manipulate network protocols. Its implementations provide readily available tools used for security testing. As the challenge objective and hints indicated the presence of sensitive network shares, we use the SMB client tool to start an SMB session with the domain controller identified in the user provisioning script. We start a session under the user Elfie and begin exploring the network shares. Inside the File Share folder, we find a directory named Super Secret Research. An attempt to change into that directory fails. While reviewing the contents of the File Share folder, we find a to-do list which indicates this folder is only accessible to users from the research team. To continue solving the challenge, we use the hint regarding Active Directory misconfigurations related to certificates. To find potential vulnerabilities, we will be using the blog by Andrew Trexler, which details how to navigate a vulnerable AD certificate services configuration. The blog mentions the Certipy tool. This tool is available in Alabaster's InPacket folder. Using this reference, we execute a Certipy command which will scan the domain controller for potential vulnerabilities. Once the tool completes the scan, we review the output it created. As we specified the vulnerable flag in Certipy, we get a very brief report and can easily find the vulnerability. In this case, the server is vulnerable as domain users can enroll while supplying an arbitrary subject for the certificate. This will allow us to impersonate a user from the research team. Next, we craft our Certipy command using the request option in order to request a certificate as Wombly Cube. We choose Wombly as we need to target someone in the research team. The Certipy tool saves the resulting certificate as a PFX file. To obtain Wombly's authentication hashes, we leverage the authentication option of the Certipy tool while specifying the generated PFX file for authentication. We successfully obtain Wombly's authentication hashes. To keep our console organized and pretty, we save the resulting hash to a variable. As we have obtained authentication material and can impersonate Wombly, we use the SMB client tool of InPacket, but this time we authenticate using Wombly's hash. Authenticated as Wombly, we can now change directory into the Super Secret Research folder and view the name and contents of the super secret file. To complete this challenge, we go back to our badge and enter the name of the file under the Active Directory objective.